A dual alternator failure just as I enter IMC is something I have to deal with right now. You wouldn't want this to happen to you without having first prepared for it on the ground.
When departing in low IFR, airlines use takeoff alternates. Why? Because it's required. The U.S. regs for airline operations say in so many words that no person may dispatch or release an aircraft unless the dispatch or flight release specifies an alternate airport. When we look at the charter operations in the United States and the charter regs, they say in so many words that no person may take off an aircraft under IFR unless there's an alternate airport. So look, folks, if it's good enough for the pros, it's certainly good enough for us. There are 3 techniques to get your takeoff alternate into your flight plan. Let's first set the stage so you can see the picture. We're going to do the Van Nuys Newall 6 departure Daggett transition. So here's Van Nuys, and you can see next door to Van Nuys is this great airport known as Burbank, which is our perfect takeoff alternate. Why? Because they've got this beautiful ILS localizer that goes right over the departure end of runways 16 at Van Nuys. So we're going to use the ILS runway 8 as our takeoff alternate for the departure. The first way to set up a takeoff alternate is to load it into your active flight plan. The way we want to do that is by going to the flight plan, turning the cursor on, and I want to show you that we're going to do a flight from Van Nuys to Albuquerque's Double Eagle. So here is the Newall 6 departure. Here's the en route section. And now what we want to do is get the takeoff alternate loaded into the flight plan. To do that, we're going to hit the procedure button, select approach. It gives me the approaches at the destination airport, so I don't want those, so I'm simply going to press the clear button to cancel those out. Now I'll simply use my mover knob to move up to the top, and I'll change the airport field from AEG to Burbank. Then I'll press enter, choose the ILS to runway 8. I'll choose the transition of vectors, and I'm going to load it. So now that I have the approach loaded in to my active flight plan, I'm going to run through all the waypoints to show it to you. And there it is. I've now loaded my takeoff alternate into my active flight plan. So now let's say that I'm getting airborne on the Newall 6 departure, and the need arises that I now need to proceed to my takeoff alternate. Let's say I've got some kind of emergency happening in the flight deck, right? So as I tell ATC I need to proceed to my takeoff alternate, I'm simply going to push the procedure button and either activate vectors to final, or in this case I chose to activate the approach. And now I'm going to speed up the video for demonstration purposes. But as I get turned around by ATC and set up to shoot the approach into my takeoff alternate, which is actually going to be behind me, one of the key things I need to do is I need to make sure that I've got the VLOC frequency set and I've got my CDI changed over to VLOC. The second way to set up a takeoff alternate is to load it into Flight Plan 2. So looking at a Garmin 530 here, I'm going to go to my flight plan. I'm going to show you that this flight plan is the same flight plan that we used on the Garmin 400. Simply a flight from Van Nuys using the Newall 6 departure over to Albuquerque Double Eagle. And now in this case, because I want to load the takeoff alternate into Flight Plan 2, I'm going to go to my flight plan catalog by using the changer knob over to Flight Plan page 2. I'm going to turn the cursor on, and notice I've labeled Flight Plan 2 as takeoff alternate. That's typically where I put my takeoff alternate. And you can see here, I've got a previous takeoff alternate that I used at Oakland Airport. So if I was to now load up my takeoff alternate here in Flight Plan 2, what button would you press? No, you don't press the procedure button. We see people do that all the time. What you actually need to do, and here's the big tip, the tip is you need to push the menu button. We're going to hit menu and scroll down to select approach. That's the big aha. So now we're going to press enter once we've highlighted select approach. I'm going to hit the clear button again like I did previously on the Garmin 400. I'm going to scroll up to the airport field, and I'm going to change the name from Oakland to Burbank. Then I'll press enter, select the ILS to runway 8. I'll choose vectors as the transition, and notice it says load only. That's what I want. I press enter, and now I've loaded my takeoff alternate into flight plan 2, and I'll just simply review the waypoints here. So let's fly the actual departure on the Garmin 530. So here I am getting airborne, and again, let's say the need arises that I need to proceed to my takeoff alternate. I've got an open door, I've got an alternator failure. So what I'm going to do here now is push the flight plan button, go to flight plan 2, turn my cursor on, highlight flight plan 2, press menu, and activate the flight plan. And now, here's one of the key points. Yes, I've placed the takeoff alternate flight plan into my active flight plan, but you need to come back in here using the procedure button and activate the approach. And now that I get radar vectored around onto the localizer for the ILS runway 8, my takeoff alternate, some of the key things, again, that you need to do here is I need to make sure that I tune the correct ILS frequency, 109.5, and I change my CDI from GPS to VLOC. The third way to set up a takeoff alternate is to load it into Garmin number 2. So let's take you to the video and show you how to do that. So here's how we set up the takeoff alternate in Garmin 2, the sandbox. I'm going to hit the procedure button, select approach, press enter. Now it comes up with the approaches at Van Nuys. Now my takeoff alternate is at Burbank. So what I like to do is simply hit the clear button once. And now that the cursor is flashing, I'll use the mover knob, the big knob, and the changer knob, the skinny knob, to move on up to Van Nuys where the airport name is. And now change the name from Van Nuys to Burbank. Press enter. Choose the ILS to runway 8. In this case, it'll be vectors. And I'm going to load only. I'll press enter again. And now I have my takeoff alternate loaded in Garmin 2, the sandbox. To activate the takeoff alternate in Garmin 2, the sandbox, all I simply have to do from the active flight plan page is press the menu button. It highlights crossfill. Press enter. It highlights again at the bottom, initiate transfer, press enter, and this now will crossfill manually the takeoff alternate from Garmin 2 into Garmin 1. But what I like to do is, just to make sure the approach got activated, is once the takeoff alternate is sitting in Garmin 1, I will press the procedure button and select activate vectors to final. So now I have a caution for you, and caution is confirming your VLOC frequency and course if required. So you need to make sure that you tune the VLOC frequency, and then you also need to make sure that you switch your CDI source from GPS to VLOC and that you set the course, or as we like to say, CDI, source, and course. So remember, there are 3 ways to set up a takeoff alternate. Number 1 is to load it into your active flight plan. Number 2 is to load it into flight plan 2. And number 3 is to load it into Garmin 2.
A takeoff alternate seems like a lot of work, but in the end, a little bit of planning and preparation can go a long way towards being prepared.